She was incredibly beautiful. Her biggest problem every day was getting blocked in by flowers from admirers. She could barely get out the door. She casually gave the flowers to her neighbor, but the neighbor still complained. Living next door to her was a headache. Molly had been beautiful since she was little. She always stood out wherever she went. Her father was a famous rock star. She was born into the spotlight. But later, her parents died in a plane crash. They left her a huge fortune. She never had to work or worry about money. Every morning, the trustee wired a large amount of money into her account. She lost her parents when she was young, but she grew up like a rich princess. She never had to worry about anything. On her 22nd birthday, her best friend threw her a huge party. Everyone there came from wealthy families. Molly naturally became the center of attention. A lot of great guys came over to meet her. They all wanted to impress her. Her friend even invited 2 famous models. Molly looked at their perfect skin and asked how they took care of it. After talking for a while, she started worrying about getting older. She hurried into the bathroom and carefully looked at her face in the mirror. Then, someone suddenly spoke. Molly looked around and found a little girl. The girl said she used to have the same shoes. Molly was surprised. She never expected to see such a young kid at her birthday party. The little girl didn't hold back. She pointed out exactly how Molly looked. Molly had spent her whole life being praised. This was the first time someone talked to her like that. The girl quietly washed her hands. Then Shuichi walked in. He said, this was Rei, his boss's daughter. She was very hard to deal with. She had already driven away a lot of nannies. Now he had to take care of her himself. After that, he took Rei away. Molly had always lived around people who praised her. Rei's words made her look at herself for the first time. She suddenly felt she wasn't as charming as she used to be. She quickly went to her best friend and wanted to know what people really thought about her. But her friend told her any man at the party would fall for her. Just then, music started playing on the stage. Molly was instantly drawn to it. The singer's name was Neil. He had been invited to sing for her birthday. The moment he said her name, something clicked inside her. So many men had chased after her before, but none of them ever made her feel this way. Neil was different. She fell for him right away. Later she found out Neil was a new singer Shuichi had just signed. Molly immediately asked Shuichi if she could have Neil as her birthday present. Shuichi turned her down without hesitation. Because Neil was still being evaluated. Only the best performers could become major artists. And Neil only cared about music. He wasn't interested in dating. Even after being rejected, Molly refused to give up. When the party ended, she kept following Neil and tried to start a conversation. But Neil was still thinking about his performance. He only wanted to know how he did on stage. Molly didn't rush anything. She slowly got closer to him and eventually brought him back to her apartment. But what Neil cared about most wasn't Molly. It was her father's guitars. He came over just to see the instruments his idol had once played. Molly turned off the power. The whole apartment went dark. She asked Neil to wait for a minute. Then she lit a few candles. The room instantly felt warm and cozy. Molly changed into a nightgown and walked over to Neil. Even Neil couldn't help looking at her. He looked through the guitars and knew the story behind every one of them. Then he played one of the songs Molly's father had written. Hearing the music, Molly thought about her father again. She quickly changed the subject. The two of them grew closer. Molly kept looking into Neil's eyes until he finally let his guard down. Then she playfully asked him to get her something to eat. Neil couldn't resist her anymore. For the next few days, the two of them stayed home together and hardly went anywhere. After a while, Molly started getting bored. She called her best friend and asked how to end the relationship without hurting Neil, because these past few days had started to wear her out. But before she could say anything, Neil told her he was leaving. He said the past few days had felt like a dream, and he had lost sight of his real life. He wanted to get back to making music. After hearing that, Molly suddenly didn't want him to leave. She tried to stop him, but Neil had already made up his mind. He said he had missed too many shows and couldn't keep living like this. After Neil left, the apartment felt empty. That afternoon, her best friend came over. She was shocked. The place was a complete mess. Molly was still heartbroken. She didn't even notice a stack of unpaid bills on the table. She had ignored them for so long that the water and electricity had been shut off. Even her phone service was gone. Her friend quickly called the trustee, but the number had been disconnected. The two of them rushed to the trust company, only to find out the trustee had stolen all the money and disappeared. Her parents' fortune was gone. Overnight, Molly lost everything. With her friend's help, she got a job at a furniture store, but she kept falling asleep at work and accidentally stained one of the bedsheets. She ended up paying for it herself. Her friend became more and more disappointed. She felt all her help had been wasted. Molly wanted to explain, but her friend wouldn't listen. Just when Molly had nowhere else to turn, Shuichi offered to help. He got her a job as Rei's nanny. The next day, Molly went to pick Rei up from school. The moment they met, Rei said she was 3 minutes late. From that day on, two completely different people had to live together. Rei was still just a kid, but she acted far more mature than her age. She was serious and always spoke her mind. Molly was the complete opposite. She was clumsy, and kept making mistakes. Ray couldn't understand why her mom had hired someone like Molly. One day, Molly walked past the room, and saw a caregiver taking care of a man in bed. She wanted to ask about him, but the door was shut right away. Ray was a serious germaphobe. If anyone touched her things, she cleaned them immediately. She couldn't stand it. She was just as strict at mealtime. Her dishes had to be spotless, and everything had to be sanitized after every use. Molly thought she was taking it too far. She said life didn't have to be so strict. The two of them started arguing, and a plate fell to the floor, and shattered. Molly got so frustrated, she took off her gloves, and quit on the spot. But on her way out, she even hit her nose on the door. When she got home, she found her pet pig tied outside. The landlord had changed the locks, because she hadn't paid the rent. She couldn't even get her own things back. The girl who once had everything, now had nothing. Luckily, her best friend still took her in. Molly finally accepted reality. The next day, she went back to apologize to Ray. Ray saw that she meant it, and agreed to give her a 1-month trial. If she didn't do well, she'd be fired immediately. Molly finally let out a sigh of relief. She always bounced back quickly, but Ray thought she was childish, and even flipped her off. Molly grabbed her hand right away, and made her put it down. Ray finally listened. It was the first time she had ever given in. Later, Molly wanted to give Ray the pet pig, as a little reward, but Ray happened to be allergic to pigs. The moment she saw it, she had a serious allergic reaction. Even with a job, Molly still didn't have enough money to get by. She started selling her designer bags, and her jewelry, one piece after another, was taken away. But she accepted it. The only thing she refused to sell was her father's guitars. That's when Ray found out. Her father had been a rock star, who had already passed away. Ray thought the guitars were worth a fortune, but Molly said they were the last things her parents had left behind. She couldn't sell them. Ray thought there was no point keeping them in storage. Those words left Molly speechless. She had spent her whole life living under her father's name. Now that her money was gone, the guitars were all she had left to remember him by. Later, Molly asked about the man in the room. Ray told her it was her father. He had been in a coma all this time. To Ray, her father was just lying there, without any awareness. Molly thought Ray seemed cold, but Ray said life was just like that. People who stayed too innocent only ended up getting hurt. Molly didn't agree. She still wanted to stay true to herself, even though she was clumsy and always caused little accidents. She brought laughter into Ray's quiet life. One day, her best friend was baking bread when the oven suddenly caught fire. Molly grabbed a jacket and used it to put out the flames. Only afterward did she realize it was Neil's jacket. There was a huge burn hole in it. She decided to fix it herself. Right then, Neil called. He told her he had signed with a record label and officially become a professional singer. Molly was genuinely happy for him. She decided to return the repaired jacket. But the moment Neil saw it, he got angry and told her not to see him again. Molly knew the jacket was only an excuse. Now that Neil was successful, he just wanted to cut ties with her. Ray saw through everything. She told Molly to stop chasing other people and start working on herself. She could also tell that Molly had been scared all along. Molly had never worried about money before, but after losing everything, she had no idea what to do. Even though Ray was only 8, she had already accepted how harsh life could be. Molly hoped Ray could enjoy life like other kids. She turned off the ballet music and played an upbeat pop song. Then she pulled Ray into a dance. The two of them laughed and fell onto the floor together. Ray got up and was about to leave. Before walking away, she told Molly to grow up. After that, most of Molly's time was spent working. When her best friend invited her out, she turned it down. After everything she had been through, she no longer cared about fancy parties. Neil's rejection also opened her eyes. Her friend was upset because Molly kept saying no. Molly explained she had to work and pay her rent. She didn't want to depend on anyone forever. But the two of them saw life very differently, and their friendship became strained. With nowhere to stay, Molly went to see Shuichi. She found him busy with work, running from one event to another. But every time Ray performed, no one from her family showed up. Later, Molly ran into Ray's mother and learned she had skipped Ray's performance again. Molly was surprised. She finally understood why Ray had become the way she was. She had learned very young not to expect too much from anyone. One day, it poured rain. Ray walked home all by herself. The next day, she came down with a high fever. Molly stayed by her side and took care of her. That was when Ray finally started to understand Molly. Molly realized Ray had never really enjoyed being a kid, so she took her out. The two of them went around town and tried junk food together. At first, Ray didn't want to eat any of it, but Molly kept encouraging her. Later, the two of them sat down to rest. Molly talked about her childhood. When she was 8, her parents died unexpectedly. After that, she buried herself in parties, just so she wouldn't feel lonely. After hearing that, Ray finally understood her. The two of them shared the same kind of pain. That night, they fell asleep together. The next morning, Molly woke up and saw Neil. It turned out, Neil was now dating Ray's mother and using her connections to help his career. At that moment, Molly finally let him go. She ran to the lake and jumped into the water, but it was too shallow. She couldn't even sink. Someone quickly called her out. The next day, she came down with a fever. This time, Ray took care of her and slowly helped her heal. Meanwhile, Neil became more and more famous. In his new music video, he was wearing the same jacket Molly had repaired. Not long after that, Ray's father passed away. After being in a coma for so long, Ray didn't cry. She went right back to ballet practice and kept all her grief inside. After the funeral, Ray's mother paid Molly and let her go. She believed Ray was simply cold and distant, but Molly knew Ray just didn't know how to express her feelings. She refused to take the money and told Ray's mother that she didn't really know her own daughter. She wasn't respecting Ray. She was only giving Ray whatever she wanted, instead of truly being there for her. After leaving, Molly ran into Neil. He had hit a creative block and wanted Molly back in his life, hoping she would inspire him again. But Molly turned him down. She told him he had always cared only about himself and never about anyone else. She had nothing left to give him. Later, Molly decided to auction off her father's guitars. She hoped someone who truly loved music would take good care of them. As soon as the auction started, an anonymous buyer bought every single guitar for a huge price. With the money, Molly rented a small apartment and finally started living a simple life. Not long after that, Ray suddenly disappeared. Molly was sure she had gone to the amusement park. Sure enough, Ray was sitting there alone. Without saying a word, Molly quietly sat beside her. The feelings Ray had held back finally came pouring out. She threw herself into Molly's arms and burst into tears. Even with the age difference, the two of them became lifelong friends. The day of Ray's performance finally came. Neil walked onto the stage, holding a guitar. He dedicated the first song to someone very special. The familiar melody began to play. It was the song Molly's father had written. Only then did Molly realize the anonymous buyer had been Neil all along. As the music filled the room, everything from the past finally faded away. Molly went from a rich heiress to someone who built her own life. She finally found who she really was. Ray slowly opened her heart and found the happiness every child deserves.